I thought my mother was a monster for abandoning me and my baby. 15 years later, my dying mother finally revealed the terrifying truth that changed everything. It's been 15 years since my mother last looked me in the eye. Not since the night I showed up on her doorstep, 17 years old, shivering, soaked from the rain, and clutching my newborn baby in my arms. I still remember her expression when she opened the door. Her face went pale, her eyes flicked to the tiny bundle in my arms, and then nothing. No words. No welcome. Just a cold step back as she muttered, "You need to leave." I begged, cried, fell to my knees on her front porch. I had nowhere else to go. My boyfriend had vanished the moment I told him I was pregnant. I'd been staying at a friend's place for a few weeks after I got kicked out of school, but that arrangement dried up the moment the baby arrived. My friend's parents wanted no part in teenage drama. But my own mother? I thought she'd take me in. I knew. She'd eventually melt and help me figure it all out. She didn't. She told me she couldn't undo what's been done. Said, "This is your mess to clean." And then she turned off the porch light. I sat there in the dark for nearly an hour, feeding my baby under the yellow flicker of a dying street lamp, until a neighbor called the police. They took me to a shelter. That was the last time I saw her face in person, until 3 weeks ago. The years that followed were brutal. I juggled minimum wage jobs, homelessness, judgmental glances, and loneliness that clung to my bones like winter. But I raised my son, my boy. He's 15 now, taller than me, gentle, kind, obsessed with space documentaries and lemon muffins. I'm proud of him. Everything I did for him. But that void, where my mother's love used to be, never left. I buried it deep, like a splinter you can't reach. Then 3 weeks ago, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Emily Carter?" "Yes. This is Nurse Julie from Mercy Hospital. Your mother, Marjorie Carter, has asked to see you. She's not doing well." My first instinct was to hang up, or laugh, or both. But something in the nurse's tone, soft, urgent, cut through the years of anger. I asked, "Why me?" She said she needs to tell you something. Before it's too late. I told myself I wouldn't go. I couldn't go. But curiosity has a way of gnawing at you, especially when your heart still quietly yearns for closure, even when your mind insists you're over it. So I went. She was barely recognizable. Frail, wrapped in hospital sheets, her once perfectly coiffed hair now limp and gray. Her eyes flickered open as I stepped in. She looked surprised, or maybe relieved. "You came," she whispered. I didn't speak, just stared. She motioned to the chair beside her bed. "Please, Emily. I have something to tell you. Something I should have told you a long time ago." I didn't sit. I couldn't. "I'm dying, Em," she said. "And you deserve to know the truth." I didn't say it, but the truth I knew was already more than enough. She abandoned me. She left me to rot. What more was there? But then she said something that made the room tilt sideways. "I didn't abandon you because I didn't love you. I did it because I was being watched. Because I was threatened." My throat tightened. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. "You think I pushed you away," she said, tears pooling. "But I was trying to keep you safe." I didn't believe her. Not yet. But as I looked at the panic in her eyes, I realized something. She believed what she was saying. I stood there frozen, the hospital monitor beeping softly beside her. I hadn't prepared myself for this. I came expecting a weak apology, maybe some tears, maybe nothing at all. But not this. Not some cryptic claim about being watched, about threats. "Safe from what, Mom?" I asked finally. My voice came out sharper than I intended. She winced. Not from the tone, but from some memory clawing its way back. "You remember Darren?" "My second husband," she said. I nodded stiffly. Darren. Tall, always too quiet, always watching me a little too long. I was 12 when she married him. 15 when I ran away the first time. "He was not what he seemed," she said, her voice trembling. "At first, I thought he was just strict, controlling, but it was more than that. He had secrets, and he had friends, dangerous ones." She paused to catch her breath, coughing into a tissue that came back speckled with blood. "He found out about your pregnancy before you even told me," she said. That made me blink. "What? How?" "I don't know," she said. "But he came to me with photos. You and Jason. A test. A note in your locker. I don't know how he got them, but he knew. And he was furious. Why would he care?" I asked, confused. It wasn't his business. Her eyes welled up. "Because he wasn't just trying to control me, Emily. He wanted to control everything. He said if I didn't make you leave, he'd hurt you. He threatened to kill the baby. Said the child could ruin everything." My heart dropped. I looked at her, searching her face for signs of a lie, but all I saw was something raw and broken. I was terrified, she whispered. He had money power. I knew things by then. Things I should have gone to the police with, but I was a coward. I let that man live in our home because I was scared of what he'd do if I didn't. I felt sick. So you just let me go? Into the cold? With your grandson? I didn't know what else to do, she cried, a sudden burst of life in her voice. I thought if I pushed you away, if I acted cold enough, you'd stay away, and he'd lose interest. I hoped you'd find somewhere safe. I shook my head. You could have called me later. Checked on me. I wanted to, she sobbed. So many times. I used to sit by the phone with your number dialed, but then I'd see his eyes watching me, or find him going through my purse, and I'd panic. I was trapped, Em. She looked so small in that bed, swallowed by years of guilt and illness. I sat down, finally, and buried my face in my hands. You could have left him, I said, voice muffled. I tried, but he had connections. Blackmail. He made sure I couldn't just walk away. And after he died in that car crash 4 years ago, it was already too late. You vanished from my life. I thought I didn't deserve to find you. I remembered hearing about that crash. I didn't even flinch when I saw the obituary. At the time, it felt like nothing more than the distant end of a bitter chapter I'd long since closed. I kept track of you, she said softly. I saw your Facebook. Pictures of your boy. He looks like Jason. I nodded slowly. I kept every photo I could find. I printed them, hid them in a box in my closet. I loved you, Emily. I just didn't know how to save you without risking your life. Tears slid down her cheeks. And now I'm dying, and I don't want that to be the end of it. I need you to know the full truth. There's more. Things about Darren, about your father, and about why he wanted that baby gone. I sat there, numb, not sure what to believe anymore. My mind kept flickering between the cold, silent years of abandonment and the trembling, tear-streaked woman lying in that hospital bed. She looked like a stranger, and yet she was still my mother. You said there was more, I murmured. About Darren and my father? She closed her eyes for a moment, as if summoning strength. I never told you the full story about your dad, did I? I shook my head. I barely remembered him, just flashes. Laughter, a scent of cologne, the way he used to swing me up in the air. Then one day, he was gone. I was 5. He didn't leave us, she said. He was taken. My heart jolted. What do you mean? He found out something about Darren's past, back when I first started dating him. Your father was cautious. He didn't like Darren. Thought he was too secretive. Then one day, your dad told me he'd uncovered something. He said Darren had connections to a private group, some sort of underground financial network. Laundering, illegal assets, even trafficking. He was going to report him. She gripped the sheets tightly. The next morning, your father was dead. Car accident, they said. But I knew. I knew it wasn't just a coincidence. Tears slid silently down her face. I think Darren was involved. I just couldn't prove it. And by then, I was already pregnant with your half-sister, his child. He made sure I knew I was under his control. I didn't have family. No money of my own. And I had you to think about. I stared at her in disbelief. I'd grown up thinking my father had walked out on us. I hated him for that. And now, my stomach twisted. So, Darren killed Dad, I whispered. She nodded slowly. Or had someone do it. And when he found out you were pregnant at 17, he thought history would repeat itself. He said the baby would mess up everything again. He was afraid you, or the child would dig too deep. That somehow, you'd uncover what your father did. He got paranoid. That's why he threatened you. I sat there, shaking, feeling like the ground had dropped beneath me. Why didn't you tell me this sooner? She looked at me with eyes full of regret. Because I didn't think you'd believe me. And I was scared. He watched everything. And then when he died, I thought, maybe I could still fix things quietly. But by then you were gone. I didn't have the courage. We sat in silence for a long while. Machines beeped steadily, the smell of antiseptic lingering in the air. I need to show you something, she said weakly. From under her pillow, she pulled out a wrinkled envelope. Inside were photos, old receipts, a flash drive, and a handwritten note. This is everything I kept. Proof. Of what he did, of what he was involved in, and who helped him. I didn't know what to do with it. But maybe you will. I held the envelope in my hands like it was radioactive. It felt heavy, not just in weight, but in history. Do whatever you want with it, she said. Burn it. Expose it. Just don't let his legacy win. I didn't know what I was going to do. But I knew my mother, for the first time in 15 years, was telling the truth. Maybe not all of it, but enough. And as much as I wanted to stay angry, something inside me cracked open. I reached out and took her hand. She passed away 3 days later. At her funeral, I stood beside my son. He held my hand the way I once held his. I didn't tell him everything, not yet. But one day I will. Because this isn't just about what happened to me. It's about stopping it from happening again. I appreciate you watching till the end. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more content.